Good morning, Naftali.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Jonathan.
Shavua Tov.
Amen. Okay. Today we're going to start at the Mishnah on Daf Lamed Ches 38a. See that? We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. In this chus of learning, we should have Beis Hamikdash immediately. We're also learning in the chus of really Nishmas, Zav Golda Bas Baruch Binyamin, and Zev Ben Sion.
Nathanael Zev Ben Sion.
Okay, Rabbi needs refuah shlema. It says like this. Someone deposits fruits by his friend. Even if they're spoiling, even if they're getting lost. So, you shouldn't touch them. Is that another shas pad? Huh? Is that a shas pad? Yes. No, okay. So the Mishnah says that if foods are spoiling and they're in your they're deposited by you, then you should not sell them. I'm going to see in the Gemara two reasons. Gemara right over there is two Gemaras.
Oh. You guys go to sleep last night?
Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Meichem b'fnei bez and b'nei shekamesh aved b'baylam." Shimon ben Gamliel says, "No, you do sell them." You see, what's going on over here is someone deposited. Let's say Reuven grows fruits or something, and he deposits them by Shimon to watch. They start to spoil. Tanakama holds Shimon should not sell them to save Reuven from his loss. And Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, no, he should sell them. In front of Beis Din, he should sell them. But just like if he would find a lost object that was getting ruined, he would have to try to salvage it to save Reuven. So he should do the same thing with these fruits that are getting lost. It's as if he's returning a lost object to the owner. It says, my timer. What's the reason for the Tanakama that says that you shouldn't sell it? So, Amar Rav Kana, Machlekes. We have Rav Kana. Rav Kana is Talmud of Rav. So early Amira. It says, Adam Reitze B'kav Shalei Mitisha Kav Shal Chaver. That's a famous line. A person would rather have one kav of his own, what he grew himself, rather than Tisha Kav and Shel Chaver, rather than 9 kavim of his friend. 9 kav. A kav is the size of 24 eggs.
Society these days has changed. People say, just give me.
No, if you grew it, people don't do things themselves nowadays. If you grow something yourself, if you grew your own thing, you don't. What was that? Marijuana? Okay. Okay, I wasn't thinking of that, but all right. You would rather have your own over because of the effort. It's sentimental.
That's what I'm saying. This generation is not the thing.
Oh, really?
This is the ruined generation that tilled the oil of Israel soil.
But I'm just saying that someone that did actually do the work.
I appreciate that. I'm saying the person in the street meet these days.
It ruins
Okay.
Israel.
So he says a person would rather have his own rather than 9 of his friends. So even though there would be a possible loss over here, because it's spoiling, but the person would rather have his own that's going to be worth up to, here it seems like up to 9 times less, rather than his friends. What his friend would be 9 times more. We'll see. The Gemara is going to say it's an exaggeration, but we'll see. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, he's later Amira. He says, he has another concern. He has a religious concern, not a sentimental value. He has a concern that if you're going to sell it, it's possible that there's 2 concerns here. We'll see. The Gemara is going to define it better. But right now, there's 2 possible problems. One is that Reuven has grain. and he has to take Meiser off it. So he says, you know what? I have grain that's by Shimon in his house. That'll be Truma and Meiser off this grain right here. And it turns out that Shimon had already sold that grain, which means that he's going to be eating tevel. Well, that's one concern. I have another concern that maybe he made it Shumas Meiser before he sold it, and now he sells it to someone else, and that guy's going to be eating Truma. Levi, that bought it, is going to be interested. Two concerns. We'll see. The Gemara will define it clear. Like, what's the issue? Okay. Meisvei. Gemara has a question. Yeah, you got the two reasons: Rav Kana and Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Mafkid peiros eitzel chaver harei liga behem. Someone deposits fruits by his friend, you shouldn't touch them. That means you shouldn't sell them, even if they're spoiling. Lefikach, therefore, balabayas oisan chuma samaisa al makamacher. Therefore, because Shimon, that's the Shomer, is not going to sell them, therefore Reuben is allowed to make chuma samaisa allowed to make this produce chuma samaisa, because Shimon is not going to sell it. Okay. Even if it's going to be a loss. That's what we're holding right now. We'll see soon that it's going to shift a little bit. The Gemara says like this. According to Rav Kana's logic that said that it was because of sentimental value, that's why we say therefore. Let's finish the sentence. We'll go back to explain. But according to Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, what does it mean therefore? It's because of. The whole reason why he wasn't allowed to sell it, according to Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, was because the person may have made it Shumas Meiser, and that would create a problem, a religious problem. It's not therefore he's allowed to make it Shumas Meiser. It's because he may make it Shumas Meiser. That's why the person wasn't allowed to sell it. The Gemara says, Hachikamer, this is what it means to say. Now that the rabbis have said that you shouldn't sell it. This is Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak explaining. That because we're concerned that maybe he made it Shumas Meiser, therefore he can't sell it. Lefikach, therefore, even originally, Balabayas, I say, in Shumas Meiser, Makamacha, therefore the Balabayas is allowed to do it. So, in other words, I can get a therefore out of Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak as well. All I need to do is I need to say that they've established the concern into an actual rule, and now, therefore, we don't have that concern anymore, and then you're allowed to do it. Because you're not allowed to sell it. Yeah, so it's not, according to Rav Kana, I have step one is sentimental value, don't sell it. Therefore, you're allowed to, the owner, Reuven, is allowed to make a Shumas Meiser. According to Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, religious reasons don't sell it, and therefore, those religious concerns are not a problem. Gemara now says, Amar Rabba bar Bachana Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Statement in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Rabba bar Bachana says, Machlekes b'chdei chesreinan. This discussion between Reb Shimon ben Gamliel in our Mishnah and the Tanna Kama that says, are you allowed to sell produce that's starting to spoil? That is only if the spoilage is at the average rate of spoilage. I didn't work it out exactly. I think it's like 1/30th or something. Rashi said that it was a kav. The Gemara later is going to say, but 1 second, let me just see what it is. Yeah, it was 9 half kav to a core. A core is 30 sa, and there's 6 kav in a core, and this is half a kav, so it'd be half a kav spoilage to 30 sa. It's a lot. It's much more than a 30th. What's 30 times 12?
60.
360. 360. So it's I guess it's like 1/360th. Does that make sense?
Overall.
Yeah, where's everyone else?
Yeah. Okay. So the machlekes that says, are you allowed to sell it? That machlekes Tanna Kama is only if the spoilage is at the average rate. But if it's starting to spoil faster than that, then Divrei Kol Meichel Bebezna, everyone says you have to sell it. You have to salvage, you have to save Reuven's loss, save him from the loss, and you have to sell it. Okay, now, other Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Badei Pligi, it's impossible for Rav Yochanan to fit with Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak because Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak had a religious concern. He had a religious, the Trumas Amaisus concern. It's very possible that the spoilage is taking place, and meanwhile, this guy's making Trumas Amaisus, and you're telling him that he should sell it. There's a real problem there. But other Rav Kana, Milei Mapligi on Rav Kana, that only had a sentimental concern. Is that a real? Is it possible to fit with Rabbi Yochanan? Do we have to say they're arguing? Kikam Rav Kana, Bechdeiches Reinen Kamer. Rav Kana said that he would rather have his own over 9 of his friend. So 9 times. So that was only if it was the spoilage was at the average rate. But if it was spoiling faster than that, then maybe we'd say to sell it. The Gemara says 1 second. He even said that he would rather have it more than 9 times. I guess the spoilage can't be up to nine times that amount. So as the Gemara says, Gusman Balma, he didn't really mean 9. 9 was a number, just an exaggeration, like they say today, a million. Like, okay, not in a million years, not in a.
Does anything change if the Trumas Amaisus is spoiling? The owner somewhere else, he designates it. What is going back?
Hill is asking an interesting question.
Oh, I had a question.
That okay, the thing is like this. There is another concern Tosfos mentions. That you're not supposed to take Trumas Amaisus. It's called Shleimin Amukif, not when it's right next to you, because of that problem of maybe spoilage or other concerns. So Tosfos says we're talking about that it was on Erev Shabbos, where Erev Shabbos you're allowed to overlook that concern that maybe it's not perfect and all of that. Yeah, that's a Shleimin Amukif. It's supposed to be next to you when you take the Trumas Amaisus. Okay, Meisvei. There's a question on Rabbi Yochanan. I have a few questions here. Rabbi Yochanan was the one that introduced us that everyone would agree, the Tanakami and Reb Shimon would agree that you sell it if the spoilage is at a faster rate than what's expected. Meisvei is a question. We have a brisa that says that the balabayas, the balabayas, which is Reuven, is allowed to designate the produce that's in Shimon's house as Trumas Amaisus because Shimon isn't allowed to sell it. 1 second, maybe Shimon is allowed to sell it. Why? Because it's spoiling at a faster rate. Meanwhile, it was already sold, and Reuven is eating produce that was never fixed. That was tevel. The truma that he separated wasn't in his possession anymore. The Gemara answers, you don't have to worry about that. Reuven is not eating tevel because it's not common, so therefore it's not probable, and therefore he's allowed to do the Trumas Amaisus, and it's not a problem. We're not concerned about that. Okay. Gemara now says 1 second. What happens if it does happen, that it does spoil? Then it's going to turn out that he is going to sell it. So what's he selling now? He's selling Trumas Amaisus. Shimon sold the produce that was already Trumas Amaisus because Reuven wasn't concerned because it's not common for it to spoil at a faster rate. He sells it to Levi. Levi's eating Truma, and Levi's not a Levi. Maybe a Levi, but he still can't eat Truma. He wasn't allowed to do that, right? So the Gemara says, that Mishnah that we're talking about there's a machlekes if you're allowed to sell it, and then Rabbi Yochanan comes along that machlekes is only if it's spoiling at a slower rate, but if it's at a you are allowed to sell it, you're only allowed to sell it to a kayan. And what's the price that you sell it for is at the lower price because you're not in the same market. It's just a truma, a kayanim market at the price of truma. Okay. The Gemara asks, 1 second. You wanted to say that this doesn't fit with Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak. Because according to Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak, said that we have a concern that maybe you're going to sell it. You had a concern that you'll sell it at the faster, but if it's spoiling faster, you're going to sell it. And Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak had a whole concern that maybe it's Shumas and Meisers. So we said, obviously, it's arguing on Rabbi Yochanan. According to Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, you can never sell it, even if it's spoiling at a faster rate. 1 second, that's not true. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak naminus avnin l'kayim b'dmei shuma. You sell it to Kainim. It's not a machlekes with Rabbi Yochanan. According to Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak, you just sell it to Kainim. The Gemara says no. You have to point out over here exactly what the sheet of Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak is. They're arguing like this. The Rabbi bar Chana Savar Yosef Rabbi bar Chana means Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi bar Chana named Rabbi Yochanan. He holds Yosef Mechdei Leishchiach Midi. More than the spoilage rate is very uncommon. And when it does happen, it happens later. It doesn't happen right away. I guess the spoilage decides to pick up speed later on. So Yavadu Balabayas Chumas Maisa Makamach. And when would the Balabayas make it Chumas and Maisers? He would have made it Chumas Maisers beforehand. The spoilage takes place later. So what's going to happen now is that a concern about Ruvain eating Tevel is not a concern for Rabbi bar Chana, because at the time that it's going to be sold, that's going to be at a later time. However, Hilkach once it reaches that higher rate of spoilage, all you have to do is sell it to the kainim for the price of truma. And even if it is truma, it's not a problem. Kainim are going to eat it, and he's already resolved his issue.
This guy's only going to decide in his head to take truma later on.
No, he is going to take truma before. It's going to spoil later. Right. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak is not worried about the tevel. He only had a concern about the guy eating the truma. That's not a problem. But exactly what you're saying is the concern of Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Savar. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak has a second problem, which is Eli's saying, it does happen that it spoils at a faster rate. And when does that happen? It starts immediately. And if you're going to tell him to sell it, yeah, it's possible the kadum is that he's going to sell it before Reuven took truma. And at the time that Reuven takes truma, it's already been sold. When by the time Reuven is going to take the truma, he doesn't know that it was sold already. With kachol tvalim, he's going to end up eating tevel. Okay, so Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak's concern is that Reuven is going to eat unfixed produce. Rabbi bar Chana and Rabbi Yochanan had a concern that maybe it's going to be sold to a non-kayan, so we fix that and say you have to sell it to a kayan. So the actual concern over here, when we started with Rav Nachman Yitzchak Shema Asana Hamafkid Shumas Maisa Makamacher, according to what we're saying now, is not a concern that maybe Levi is going to eat truma. The concern now is that maybe Reuven is not going to be eating fixed food. He's going to be eating.
When you sell to Kohanim, don't you sell for less? Isn't there a hefsed there?
Yeah. That's a little hefsed. I guess that you would have to work it out. He's still gaining, even though the price is less. He's still gaining. We'd have to say that. It's a good point, though.
So does this whole mission apply only when the rate of spoilage is greater than normal?
The Mishnah itself would be when it's at the average rate, and that's why we have a machlekes. But Rabbi bar Chana says that if it's faster rate, then this Mishnah doesn't apply. Everyone agree that.
So does it then create a mitzvah like Hashavas Aveda that he must sell it? So it creates.
Yeah, that's what will come out. Yeah, in other words, you're taking Reb Shimon ben Gamliel in the machlekes to Yosef Mechdei Chesreinan. If it's at a faster rate, then that Hashavas Aveda kicks in. Yeah.
So the concern is saving the money of the mafkid.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Meisvei, the Gemara has another question on Rabbi Yochanan. Yeah, Rabbi Yochanan introduced this exception to the rule, which creates some problems here. It says Meisvei, Hamafke Peres Etzel Chavere. Someone deposits fruits by his friend Rekiva when they started to rot. Yayin v'hichmetz, wine that turned into vinegar. Shemen v'hivish, oil that spoiled. Oil goes bad. Rancid. Dvash v'hidvish, honey that. Why is the word hidvish?
Honey became honey.
I actually looked it up because I was always told that honey doesn't spoil,
Bees.
and they even have honey from what they found in Egypt in the sarcophaguses. They found honey and stuff, and it was still they ate it. It was still good. But what it said on the internet was that which of course is true. Is that even though it doesn't spoil, but it doesn't mean that it still tastes good. It tastes as good. Oh, it's a date honey. Oh, okay. That's a better way to thank you.
Okay, so never trust the internet.
Uh-huh.
What's yours say there? Huh? You have the English one?
Does he explain it? Loses its taste. Yeah, loses its taste. That's what they said. Loses its taste. Okay. So the rule over here is you shouldn't. We're talking about Reuven deposits this by Shimon and it's going bad. So Reb Meir says don't sell it. Oh, interesting. Isn't that interesting? It can't be. Well, okay, yeah. Rashi says by Hidvish Yatzatam.
Hidvish, it doesn't say steak.
No.
No,
He's saying that's
no, yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No. I'm looking at Rashi, right?
They said the reason why Ramirez is because basically it's not yours to sell. Not allowed to get rid of it.
We're probably going to go back to one of those reasons of Rav Kana, either because it's sentimental, or
it's not yours to touch.
It's not yours to touch, and you're concerned about the fact that it's spoiling either the sentimental or the Chumas Mises. That's why Hill pointed out if it's the Chumas Mises, then it can't be bee honey. It can only be date honey. So. The Reb Meir, that's what Reb Meir says. The Chacham says the Chacham sounds exactly like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, that you sell it in court. Very important. This came up. Someone was just asking me about this. Hillel, maybe you mentioned this like last week. When you sell it, you can't sell it to yourself. You may adjust the price to your benefit to sell it to someone else.
Right.
And by similarly, if there's a gabay tzedakah, someone that's collecting money, in those days they had copper coins that would go bad. They would what's it called when they oxidize? It would oxidize. So you would want to switch it for silver, which lasted longer. So you would switch it not with yourself. You would have to switch it with someone else, because maybe you'll adjust the exchange rate for you. Gabay tamche, the same as with the soup kitchen. If there's no poor people, they have to sell the food. You don't sell it to yourself, you sell it to other people. All of that is a distraction. But our point over here is, one of the things was fruits that were going bad, they were rotting. My love, it seems like the machlokes says even if it's rotting at a faster rate than expected, and Rabbi Yochanan says that there's no machlokes. And comes along our Mishnah and says there is. That there is a machlokes. The Gemara says like that was like a funny havamina and a quick answer. It says, is it not even if it's Yosem Echdechas Reinan? The Gemara says no, it's Kedechas Reinan. It's exactly what we were expecting from Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, that it's only at a regular spoilage rate, and that's why we have the machlokes. It says, no, 1 second. The reason why we had that svara, why we were thinking that it was at a faster spoilage rate, that it's more than the regular loss because of spoilage, is because we said wine that became vinegar, oil that became rancid, and this is like really spoiled. So that's why we were thinking that the fruits are getting really spoiled more than the average spoilage rate. The Gemara says, Shani Hassan, no. What we mean is that when it comes to those things, the reason why you don't sell it is keep it to come. Because once it spoils, it doesn't get worse. Here's what it is. How does that
The other
answer?
fruit get more. You have an
Yeah,
apple
but the
that's-
other fruits are still getting, are still spoiling. Shemen v'hivish, dvash v'hidvish, l'may chazu. What are you selling them for? I have to go back and just see it in a second. But shemen chazi legudai. The oil is you can use to put on leather. And dvash l'ktisha de gamli. And honey you can put on wounds that that's on the
Camels.
back of the camel. They put honey on wounds. Apparently that's good for stuff. They used to use honey today, and the herbalists put honey on stuff. Put it on burns, I think, even the doctors say. Doctor's gonna get me in trouble then.
You're really talking about the expiration date that's on a lot of foods.
Yeah.
Then there are certain markets in that you sell it to certain areas where they don't care.
Right. Yeah, so what happened over here is that we were thinking that it's that it was at a faster spoilage rate because we're dealing with the wine. And the wine goes bad, it's totally bad. So we answer that over there, it's not really going bad and getting, once it goes bad, it's still the standard. And over there, what we're talking about is that it doesn't get worse. But really, if it would get worse, then we would actually have to sell it. That's the idea of that. If it would be getting worse, we would have to sell it, and that fits with Rabbi Yechon.
Would be getting worse, or specifically in a case where it can't get worse?
Well, by the fruits, because we have several cases there. One of them is the wine, the oil, and one of them is the fruits. So at what rate is the fruit spoiling? We're saying that it's spoiling at a regular rate. The wine seems like it's really at a faster rate. It says, no, that's because the wine doesn't get worse, but the fruits are still at the regular rate. And if it would be worse, then we would say like Rabbi Yechon. They made a solution and you sell it in court. What is the solution for this? I mean, it's basically, if you say that it's so spoiled, it can't get worse, turned into vinegar, what's the solution? To save the drugs, that you shouldn't have that spoiled wine in it or spoiled vinegar that will ruin the drugs. What's the machlekes over here now? According to this, the Mar Savar, which is Reb Meir, we're only concerned about real spoilage, which would mean that Reb Meir would agree if it's more than the spoilage rate, back to Rabbi Yechon, that we would be concerned and we actually would sell it, even though he says not to, but that's because it was at a regular spoilage rate. Mar Savar and the Chachamim say, I feel have some more nami chasher, that we're even concerned about the loss of the container, even a small loss. Once it comes out this machlekes to gesund. So it's not actually the machlekes Reb Shimon ben Gamliel and the Tanakama, which it looked like. Yeah, it looked like that Reb Meir and the Chachamim was Tanakama and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Turns out, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says even at a regular spoilage rate, you sell it. Because of that loss, because of the loss of the fruits. And now the Chachamim is saying, even if it's not a loss of the fruits, it's a loss of the vessels, which that we never knew from Reb Meir, that we never knew from Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Okay, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Omer Yimachim beBezin Deishu Kamesha Aveda LeBailam. Shimon ben Gamliel says you sell it because you're returning a lost item to the owner. Itmar, we have a statement from Amirayim. Rab Abba Bar Yaakov Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rab Abba Bar Yaakov says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that halacha Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, that you have to sell it so that you don't, the owner Ruvain doesn't incur a loss because of the spoilage. Rav Amar Rav Nachman, Rav says the name of Rav Nachman, halacha kedivri chachamim, the halacha is like the sages where you don't sell it. So it seems like there's a machlekes between Bavel and Eretz Yisrael. Rav Nachman is of course in Bavel, a student of Rav and Shmuel, and versus Rabbi Yochanan that says halacha like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. They have the Nasi.
You said Mar Savar, who are we talking about?
Mar Savar back in the Hefsed Meruba.
Yeah.
That was Reb Meir. Well, there's two. Mar Savar, the first one was Reb Meir, and the second one was the Chachamim.
Chachamim should be the same as Shimon ben Gamliel.
Yeah.
Shabbos Aveda, even if it's a tiny bit, then you
Yeah.
should still sell it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It seems like if Reb Shimon ben Gamliel's Eitzah is right, that solves mountains of legal problems in the Talmud. You know, I find a lost object that needs taken care of. I'm gonna give it to the base and let them deal with it. I don't have
Uh-huh.
to take care of this cow. I have money that I'm sure who it belongs, so I'll give it to them. They can figure it out.
Uh-huh.
It's a neat solution.
Uh-huh. On the other hand, though, the problem is that the person doesn't want to lose it. If according to Rav Kana, he wants his own item. He wants his own animal. He doesn't, so yeah, but yes, you're right. According to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, I don't know if it meant Bifnei Bezdin means that you just hand it over. I think Bifnei Bezdin means that to make sure that you're doing it correctly. Yeah. Now you're saying, what's the difference, Reb Shimon? In Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, maybe I don't know that Reb Shimon ben Gamliel holds that a hefsid of the kankanim is also a concern.
Saying it's different svaras.
Right.
Bottom line is that you're at the same
Good point.
bottom line.
Yeah.
Because Shabbos Aveda, even if it's a tiny bit of
Yeah.
same opinion of Chacham, the rationale is different.
Yeah. Are there any comments on any of those Gemaras? If the Chachamim are exactly Reb Shimon ben Gamliel? The Chachamim that argue on Reb Meir, is that the same as Reb Shimon ben Gamliel? Okay. Ellie says yes. It's good enough. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Eimer. Okay, we had this. We're holding by Va'amar Rabbi Yochanan Chades Zimna. We have a machlekes here between Rabbi Yochanan and Reb Nachman. Rav in the name of Reb Nachman. If the halach is like the Chacham or halach is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, the problem is that Va'amar Rabbi Yochanan Chades Zimna. Rabbi Yochanan said in a different place. He said one time, Damar Rabbi Bar B'Chanam Rabbi Yochanan, that we've had before today. Kol makom sheshana Reb Shimon ben Gamliel mishasenu halacha k'maisei chutz mi'arav etzidim ra'yal chreina. That we always pass like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. That's a statement from Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan sets up a lot of the rules for us in how we pass in the Mishnayos. Like the statement halacha k'stam Mishnah is Rabbi Yochanan. The halacha is always like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, except for 3 places: Arav Tzidan and Raya Chreina. Those are 3 different cases. That's Rabbi Yochanan. And now over here we have Rabbi Yochanan saying halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. The question is, why does he have to say the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel here? He told me already that the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel everywhere, and this is not one of those 3 exceptions. My answers, there's different students of Rabbi Yochanan that said overstatements in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Some of them said the halacha is always like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, and some said that the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel here. That's what they heard from Rabbi Yochanan. Somehow that's a satisfactory answer. Okay. You have in the halacha, it says the halacha is like, which is that you don't sell it, correct? But finish that sentence.
Oh, I think if it's in the, it said that if the owner's in the city, you inform them. If not, you sell it.
If not, you sell it. That sounds more like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Oh, now this is going to be confusing. Can I see that? Oh, okay. You're going back on those chachamim. Okay, yeah. In case where one deposits with another produce and it rots, or he deposits honey and it spoils. If the owner of the item is in the city, the bailee informs him. If not, the bailee effects the remedy and sells the item in court. So the vessels and casks are not ruined as well. This ruling is in accordance with the statement of the rabbis of the Brisa. So which fits with the statement of Rabbi Yochanan that the halacha is like Shimon ben Gamliel, if that's the same as the Chachamim, right? Eli, that fits with you, fits with Rabbi Yochanan and the Chacham of the Brisa. And it would also have a cookie. That's a trophy, and it also fits with the rule that Allah is like the Chachamim. Well, the halacha would be like the sages, the Brisa. Okay, and Reb Meir.
Usually it doesn't go like Reb Meir.
Usually it doesn't go like Reb Meir, which Reb Meir is the opinion of the Tanakama, which is exactly we're not following Reb Meir. Interesting. Okay. Now the Gemara says, we're about to enter into a brand new topic over here. There's a concern of, I'll give you the concerns before we start. There's a concern that if someone is not in town and you want to take care of his property, there's a concern if you put people, certain individuals into the property, they may overuse the property and spoil the nutrients of the property because they're not sure how long they're going to be there. They're just going to, it's like a rental car. It's not my car anyway. I'll just, so that's a concern. That's a concern that we have. So it's another concern that maybe the person's going to go into the property and start claiming that he inherited it if he's a relative. And then he's going to claim maybe the person didn't protest, he's supposed to protest within 3 years and all of that stuff. So there's concerns about putting someone in the property. Sometimes it's better to put a stranger in the property and instead of a relative. Okay. Put the stranger in the property. What happens then is that he doesn't, he works there as a apotropos. All the produce that this property, he ends up putting it in like an escrow. He doesn't take it in a trust. He doesn't take it for himself. If you put the relative in, he becomes like an inheritor, and it's going to be his unless the person returns. Okay, you have a person that's taken, he went away. We don't know if he passed away or not, or we'll see. We'll go through the Gemara now. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, from Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, that Reb Shimon ben Gamliel told us that we're concerned about loss of property, that things are going to be left and they're just going to spoil and not be taken care of. Nishma, we can understand from that, the Merid and Karav Shavi, that we would bring a relative into the property of someone that was taken captive, so that to make sure that there's no loss. Midrabanan Nishma, but from the sages we understand that argued on Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, the Ein Merid and Karav Shavi. We rather not put anyone in there. Okay. The Gemara says, Mimai. How do we know that that's the case? We're going to say maybe that case is different. Over here we have a problem. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says the fruits start to spoil. There's going to be nothing left at the end except the pits. There's going to be no produce left. So that's why we have to salvage it. But maybe by real estate, yeah, I know things may grow wild. There's going to be a lot of weeds and everything, and things will fall into decay and all of that. But nevertheless, the property will still be there. Maybe you don't put anyone in there. But maybe over here the rabbi said that you don't sell it. Why? Because we have Rav Kana's concern, sentimental value. We have Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak's concern, maybe Trumas and Meises. But by the property, maybe we do put people in there. You don't have any concern. Where's the owner what's he gonna do? My fruits back over there are gonna be Trumas. You can't do that. So we don't have any concern.
Where does the sentimental until what point? Rav Kahana's opinion goes until
right.
what level?
Well, we fit it until it's Yosem Mechdeches Reina. Until the spoilage is more than the.
Is that a rate or is that a stage?
I think it's both.
Because if it's just a rate, then what does that help?
Right.
I don't care if my thing is spoiled into oblivion. I don't have any sentimental value.
Right.
I have to say it's talking about the item itself as well. No?
Yeah, you're saying it's a stage and it's also a rate. Yeah. Taisus discusses the rate. If you look at Taisus, Machlekes Bechteches Reinan, V'yesh leimar the pligish and nischaser b'chodesh b'chodshayim yoser mishur gilsa schaser adei sezman. Pligi ad shialach chesron b'chodesh b'snei tisha chatzei kam l'kor. Apparently, it's spoiling in a month what it would spoil in a year.
Right.
That would be, so which is much faster. Yeah, that'll do it. Okay, so now we're holding that we wanted to say that we can understand from Reb Shimon ben Gamliel and from the Rabbanan about if you can bring a relative into property to salvage what's growing there because the owner's not in town. You're trying to say the trade timing, that there's separate reasons, that you want to say that the fact that you salvage something that's spoiling, or bringing someone into the property it's not connected. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, okay, that the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel regarding selling produce, which means that you do sell the produce before it spoils, or before it gets worse. You sell it now. And I have another statement from Shmuel that says that you bring a relative into the property of a captive. Obviously, Shmuel paskins like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Shmuel paskins that you bring the relative into the property of the captive. It must be that it's the same logic. Gemara says, like, that's no proof. Straight time in he's paskin like both. It has nothing to do with one another. I'll even prove it to you, because I have some that paskin like this, like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, and don't paskin the other way. So it's not connected. Amar Rav Nachman, the opposite. Rav Nachman says the halacha is like the sages. But Rav Nachman also paskin reading Karav Nechsi Shavar that you do bring a relative into the property. So he is concerned about the loss. But maybe by the captives, by the spoilage, he said not to, because of either of Kana, because of the sentimental value, or because of the Chumas and Maisus from Nachman bar Yitzchak. Well, Shmaminat Shrei Taimin and Shmaminat. You can see clearly that it's two separate reasons. It's not connected. Itmar. Now we're going to discuss the actual discussion here of bringing a relative in. Shavish and Ishba. A captive that was taken captive, usually say Gershon Iskaya, that he was always at a soul of a convert. There it looks like he has a soul. I don't know. Okay, a captive that's taken captive. Rav Amar Ein Meridin Karav Lenechasav. Rav says, do not bring a relative into the property. That means someone that thinks that he's going to inherit it. Shmuel Amar Meridin Karav Lenechasav. Shmuel says you do bring a relative into the property. Now the Gemara explains. If they heard that the person died, even if it wasn't two witnesses, they heard from one witness, Taisus points out, that everyone agrees that you bring a relative in. When are they arguing? Rav and Shmuel. Rav says no, Shmuel says yes. When they didn't hear that he died, he's just not here. Rav says that you don't bring a relative in. Dilma mafsidlu. Maybe he's not going to take care of it properly, and he's going to overuse it and not fertilize it properly, and it'll spoil the property. But Shmuel says, Meridin, that you do bring a relative in. Since we have a statement that says that the person that's in the property, he doesn't get all the produce. He treats it like a sharecropper. So then, he's going to get however much the field produces, a percentage of that. So therefore, he's going to take care of the property properly.
Well, why wouldn't? If the relative has the thought in his head which he might inherit it, he's obviously going to take care of the property.
Right. Yeah.
If the whole story of a car is that he's going to inherit it, of course we're going to take care of it.
Yeah, he's thinking also that the guy may come back. See, the curve, there's two parts to it. One is that
Get it, but otherwise
he's
he
going
wanna get as much
to
as he can out of it.
he's going to actually eat the fruits of it. So if he's going to actually be able to eat the fruits, so then he may want to just get whatever he can before the guy comes back. On the other hand, though, why does Shmuel say no? Shmuel says no because Shmuel says no. You're anyways not getting all the produce. You're anyways splitting it with the owner. But maybe he'll overuse it to get whatever he can.
They add that when he hasn't found out that the person died. Like if he says
Right.
that the person is going to come back, is when he like depletes.
Yeah. Let me read the note in there.
I mean, family businesses are tough.
Yeah, that's what Keep away. Just keep away, be happy.
Okay. For if in fact this is Kipligi, Rabbar Memory in the 20, let's see 20. Since there's no reason to, this is Rab, since there's no reason to believe that his relative has died in captivity, he has no expectation of inheriting the land. We're therefore concerned that he will not bother to fertilize the soil between plantings, but will sow one crop after another to maximize his gain. Let's go to Shmuel. Shmuel says, since the master said that he gets evaluated like a sharecropper, so he won't. Okay. Shmuel holds that as long as the relative will be compensated for his labor, he will not exploit and exhaust the land. Pay the percentage.
Tony? Yeah, you know? As long as Uncle Tony's on your side, you're good.
It's not 100% clear.
You're giving two different, it's not like one says yes, one says no.
Right. You're giving two, right. Let's go. Rav is saying that the guy is going to come back. That the guy in the relative thinks the owner is going to come back, and therefore he wants to get whatever he can. Shmuel is saying that even if the relative comes back, he's still going to be paid for his efforts. So he'll treat it normally. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, why dafka karev?
That happens to be a
I
card.
think the explanation for the karev would be because if the guy doesn't come back, he might as well he should be there already. Okay, let's take a look.
By Kara, then you mean it means Yorish, the one that wouldn't have.
Yorish as well, right?
Uh-huh.
Both. Both.
as well.
Both living, so what if the next year is gonna be Shemitah? He can't do anything. the next year, But he gets the advantage of it.
He gets free boarding.
Okay, let's take a look. There's going to be a question over here on Shmuel Meisvei. Rabbi Lazar Aimer, Rabbi Lazar, I don't know. Imash Mashanemar, it applies, what does it say? Eliezer? Elazar. Rabbi Lazar says, see, I don't know if this is a brisa.
This one says.
It's a brisa, right? You have Eliezer? Okay.
For yeah, we have all kinds of Bashlish.
You have Eliezer and you have Elazar. The Hebrew and the English are
In
different.
English, they write Elazar. The Hebrew,
As
the
a yod.
Kudot is Eliezer.
With a yod.
And then the notes says that they amended to Eliezer. From
Uh-huh.
Eliezer to Elazar.
Uh-huh. They amended to Eliezer, not to Elazar.
To Elazar, 24.
That's right.
Here it says Eliezer.
Yeah, but
Maram amends Eliezer to Rabbi Elazar. Okay, the interesting thing here is that if it's Rabbi Eliezer, then this is a early brisa, which is Rabbi Elazar ben Horkinus. If it's Rabbi Elazar, then it's Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel. It's a Talmud of Rabbi Eliezer. Okay. Obviously, Rabbi Nassim. It says, "V'chorapi, I will get angry, barak yasem, and kill them." Obviously, if the people die, then the children are orphans and the wives are widows. Why does it have to say and the wives will be widows and the children will be orphans? It means that they're going to be a type of widow that they're going to try to get remarried. They won't be able to. Why? Because they won't know if their husband's passed away. And the children are going to want to go into the father's property, and they won't let them. Why? Because they didn't hear that they died. Just like the woman can't get married if we're not sure if the husband died. Also, the children can't go into the property. Shmuel, what's he talking about? That you bring the child in even though you didn't hear that he died. You have this statement from Rebbe Lezer that you do that. Rava said, "Leirid b'lim kartanan." They can't sell it. They won't be able to sell it, but they'll still be there, according to Shmuel. go into the property and use it, but they won't be able to sell it.
So these women are groomers?
There was such a case in Ardai. There was a person owned property. He left town, captive, and then Upashter Rav Sheshas Mihamas Nisan. And Rav Sheshas paskin that no one is allowed to go into the property. No relatives can go in based on this price. Amalei Rav Amram. Rav Amram says to Rav Sheshas, Dilma leid v'limkut tanan. Maybe it just means that they can't sell it. Amalei Dilma mi Pumbedisa. Rav Sheshas says, are you from Pumbedisa? You remember this, Shalom? The Mail and Pila Bekupa Demachta, where they put an elephant into the through the eye of a needle. That means like they yeah. This is where it comes from, yeah. It says that there's another source in Brachas.
Yeah.
But which means that you come up with like way out solutions. But Dumya Dinashisayim Katani, it has to be similar to the way the wives are, which means the widows. Just like over there, she can't get partially married. So it's over here, he can't go partial, doesn't get partial ownership of the property. Okay. Now the Gemara says, I'm reading Karav L'Nichsi Shavi Tanai. This is actually a Machlekes Tanaim. We said it as a Machlekes between Rav and Shmuel. It's Machlekes Tanaim, which if it's a Mishnah, then it's problematic. Usually the Gemara would say, Lema Ketanai, which is the question, why are Rav and Shmuel arguing about things that the Tanaim argued about? But over here, it seems like it's a brisa that we discovered, and maybe Rav and Shmuel didn't have to know that. The Tanya was started in a brisa. Someone that goes into the property of a captive, right? He's not in town, so they put people. The relative goes into it. We don't take him away. He hears that the owner's coming back. This guy quickly harvests everything that he can, and before the owner comes back, and he says, he gained what whatever he did quick, he gained that. When we talk about a shavai, a captive, it's the following. Talking about a relative went was taken captive to somewhere else. It doesn't say taken captive here. It just says they went to a faraway country, and we heard that they died. Okay, so then the person that goes into the property retains whatever he got. It's a new word here. Netushin sounds like abandoned property. Then we take him, we extract him from the property. This is the following are the abandoned properties. Same story. The only difference is, but we did not hear that they died. So then we take them out of the property. That sounds like the opinion of Rav. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. Ben Gamliel says, Shemati Shanatushin Kishvuyin. That abandoned property is like Shvuyin, which is captives, which you said is the halacha was, where they do keep the property. We do leave them in the property. They do that. That sounds like the opinion of Shmuel. It's easy to remember because Shimon and Shmuel would be the same, right? Easy.
No distinction.
I don't see. Yeah, seems like that. This is a little confusing because it sounds very similar, right? Nitushin and ritushin. Over here, we extract them. And this everyone would agree to. That it says, they didn't go to another country. We just don't know where they are. They disappeared. We don't know where they are.
It's abandoned.
Abandoned. They weren't taken captive. And they just, it was sort of like neglect to appoint anyone. We don't mix in. And so what's the rule over here? We extract the person that went into the property. Ritushin is the person was not taken captive. He's still around. We just don't know where he is. And he's just like, neglected to appoint someone.
But earlier on, when you had the double motion,
Yeah.
so the Ritva said the double lotion, there was in the commentary here, is to include both the captive and a guy whose whereabouts is not known.
Oh, and so
So that
interesting.
would not go with this.
So interesting.
That's just a pretty face.
So Shavli Shanishba is coming to include this person as well.
What would retushin mean according to the
But that's why I said, these are to come up. It
Family
means an
shear,
elephant coming from the other side of the needle.
family shear.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a problem with that. It's confusing me that what you're telling me, because I wanted to say that that everyone agrees to this. Not there's no machlekes here. Even Shmuel would agree. But if Shavi Shenishba is including the retushin, then Shmuel would say more than Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, if that's the case. Okay. What's the difference? Why is some called nitushin? Some are called ritushin. Nitushin, the balkarcha, so it says nitushin, which means abandon. That's against his will. That means that on the seventh year you abandon the land and you leave it nitushin. Afkasa de malka. That means that it's the king that's taking you out of it, which means the Hashem tells you can't work the land. Ritushin de midaitan, but ritushin is just abandoned on his own intention. The ksiv aim al banim reicha, mother on her children abandons them. Rashi has this whole story in here, which I didn't go through. Something about going into exile from the prophets. Okay, Tana. We mentioned before that there's a brisa that says that kulan shamalem karis, that the people that go into the property are evaluated. We pay them like a sharecropper, which is either a quarter, a third, or half of the produce. That's what they take as a payment for working the land. Hey, which case is going to get the kulan shamalem karis is going to get that payment? And if we're talking about the first case, we're talking about where the guy goes into the land, we don't take him out, we leave him there, and whatever he takes before the guy comes back, he keeps. You want to tell me that the increase he's going to get like an aris? He takes everything. He takes everything.
That rush is like it's crazy.
Yeah.
But you think no one's gonna come? You're not expecting it, they come and they wipe you out.
What was that?
No, this Rashi
This
that talks
Rashi,
about where the mother leaves the children.
October 7th. There's the rush.
Ella aritushin. Rather, it must be talking about ritushin, where the person neglects it, he leaves the property willingly. It can't be that you pay him as a sharecropper. It says we take everything away from him. Ella anitushim. It must be talking about that middle case where he's taken away as a captive, and that's why he leaves it. It says Laman. That was a machlekes. If it's following the Rabbanan, we say that he doesn't get anything. We take the property away from him. But according to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, and that he keeps it, that means he keeps everything. It says kishvuyin v'loy shvuyin, not everything. It's like a captive. Kishvuyin dein mitzineis miyad. Is this what you meant? Kishvuyin, it's like a captive that he doesn't keep the property. That we don't take. That we don't take him out of the property. He stays in the property. But he's not actually like the same status, because the Luhasan Zar is Viniskar. Over there, if it would be someone that was taken captive and we heard that he died, over there, whatever he takes from the property, he's actually going to keep. But in this case, where we did not hear that he died, we pay him as a sharecropper. Okay. Huh? What is that?
You can't say that.
Oh.
Saying, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, Kumar gives that answer a million times. This kid, this.
Oh.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So what did Shmuel say? Shmuel just said my reading. Oh, and Shmuel was following Shamin Lukaris. So Shmuel would fit with this, because since we have a brisa that says Shamin Lukaris, so Shmuel would fit with Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Yeah. Okay. The Gemara has a question. we try to compare it to another Mishnah. It says, if someone invests in his wife's property, now it's nichsei malug. He's supposed to eat the produce, but the wife keeps the property if they're divorced, or what is it called, the asset. Let's say he invested a lot, but he only got a little bit of profits. Or he invested a little bit and he ate a lot. It is what it is. If she dies, she dies, he inherits it. If they divorced or he dies, she takes back whatever it is, and that's what happened. We don't say that we pay him like a aris, like we would do to someone that goes into someone else's property, and then the person shows up. We say we give him the payment. We don't say that. Why don't we say that we should pay the husband like a aris when this terminates? The Gemara says, you can't compare that. You have to compare it to something else. Allah de Tnan, maybe. You have the Tnan. Tzarech li is the Amar something. Amar Rav Chisda. Can't be Rabbi Yechanan. Amar Rav Chisda. Who's Amar Rav Yaakov? You have Rabbi Yaakov in the name of Rav Chisda. Okay. The opposite. They're not the opposite, but it's someone that he is a girl whose father passed away and the brothers married her off. Brother and mothers married her off to someone. So this girl is allowed to walk out of the marriage without a get, miyun, right? She just walks out. So if someone, he still eats the produce of her nichsei malug that she brings into the marriage. So that is kamaitzi nichsei achadami. That's similar to investing into someone else's property where you're only going to get paid as a sharecropper. Alma, we see, since he doesn't intend or he doesn't know for sure that he's going to end up staying with her because she could walk out at any moment. So the sages instituted that he should at least get always paid as a sharecropper so that he shouldn't lose what there is there because she probably doesn't even know. So at least over there he'll get paid like a aris. So too over here, the sages pay him so that he shouldn't lose the property they instituted. They should always get paid as a sharecropper. When it says kulan, all of them, who's the all of them? What are you coming to include? So it says it's talking about a captive. You bring a relative into the property, and that relative gets paid like an aris. 1 second. What were we talking about before? Were we also talking about a relative? Yatzaladas, if he left on his own, you don't bring a relative in. That's someone that runs away on his own, not taken captive. That's what it's coming to include. It's coming to include even the bayreach, someone that a fugitive. He runs away, so the person that goes into that property gets paid like a sharecropper. Why do you run away? It's because he doesn't want to pay the head tax. I know ladas. So what we're thinking now is that did a person have time? Was he in a state of confusion when he was leaving? If he was in a state of confusion when he was leaving, then that would be considered like the laws of a captive, and the same halachas would apply. But if he wasn't in a state of confusion, he was just planning this trip, even though it was because it wasn't willingly, he has to run away because he doesn't have money for the tax. But nevertheless, he planned it, so he should have been able to put someone into the property, and therefore he didn't. Therefore, we don't put anyone in when he could have. It must be that he ran away because of murder. Mardin is murder. It means rebellion, but it's referring to murder because is that possible? That the English word comes from Mardin? Okay. Like we learned
from Mordechai.
because we learned in the end of Baba Kama where Rav Kahana, actually the Rav Kahana had killed someone, and remember he had to run away because the Persians took over and murder they kill for murder. He was the one that went to Rabbi Yechanan, and Rabbi Yechanan died, and the Rabbi Yechanan brought him back to life. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda says name Shmuel Shavi Shnishba, captive that's taken captive. He leaves produce that's ready to be harvested. Anavim livtzer, grapes that are ready to be plucked. Tamarim ligdar, and dates that are ready to be picked. Zaysim limsay. In Hebrew, every fruit has its own word for harvesting. Olives to be picked. Bezdin yardel nenachasav. Bezdin goes into the property. Apotropos. Apotropos means that someone is going to work there, basically volunteering or paid to volunteer, maybe. He takes care of whatever is there, and he just puts it aside for the owner. And he does all that work. And afterwards, they'll bring a relative in. But that first produce, they don't want the relative to take, because that was really belongs to the original owner. He was the one that did all that work. So they're going to bring an apotropos in for that. It says, one second, if you have that option of bringing an apotropos, so why don't they keep an apotropos there forever? It says, no one's willing to work for someone with a beard. They only want to do something that's for children or something like that. That's what they'll do. So for children, they'll bring an apotropos in to save the property. But this is an older person. They happen not to leave someone in charge and all of that. So they'll just put an apotropos in temporarily, but full time will have to be a relative.
Where are we going?
Traveling.
Are we going to Seattle? Where are we going?
Amar Ravuna says 3 halachas from Ravuna. We don't bring a child into the property of a captive. You can understand why. And you don't bring a relative into the property of a child. We'll explain why. And also not a relative of a relative. We'll see. I think I will explain. You can't bring a child in to the property because we don't want him to be there. He won't know what he's doing. He's a child. We'll bring in a stranger. Will be better, and he'll work and take the produce like a aris or whatever. And not a relative of a relative into the property of a child. Because this is talking about a brother from his mother, which is referring to we're talking about over here that it's a relative of a relative. So he has a regular brother, but his brother he has a paternal brother, but his paternal brother has a maternal brother that we won't bring into the property because he might claim that it's actually his. We'd rather bring a regular. See, this guy, even if he's a relative would be better because a relative actually will inherit. This guy is going to claim that he's the relative and he's not even the relative. We don't bring a relative into the property of a child. We have a concern that after 3 years, it becomes a chazaka, and the child won't know that you didn't sign the dotted line, you didn't click, you didn't make your protest. So the adult is going to end up taking advantage of the situation and saying that I have a chazaka in it, and the child didn't know what it was supposed to do. Amar Rava, Shmamina mid Rav Huna. From Rav Huna, we can understand that ein machzikim minechse katan, that you can't make a chazak in the child of a katan because the child doesn't know to protest, and that was our concern that someone would do it unlawfully. Even if after the child grows up, it's still not considered a good chazaka because the first 3 years he didn't know, and then after that he still doesn't know. This was only said if it's a paternal brother. But if it would be someone that wasn't this that we said that you don't bring a relative into the property of a child, that's only if someone that could actually inherit it because he's going to claim the inheritance. But if it would be someone that doesn't inherit anyway, then that's not a problem. And even if it is someone that could inherit, that we only said that that's a problem. Only with land. But if it's a house, then that's not a problem. We'll explain in a minute. And even in land, we didn't say that that's a problem. That's only if they didn't make a contract that says That's how they're dividing the land. But if there's a contract on that, it's called itida, is a inheritance division contract. Yeah. So then there's rumors about, not rumors. There's what's it called?
Voice.
Yeah. It becomes known. Okay. Now the Gemara says all of those things that you told me, that this is only, v'laihi, none of that applies. We don't bring any of those people in. Okay, now the explanation for this was like this: that if it's the difference between the houses and the land was, we were thinking that maybe the neighbors of the houses will know the story and they'll be able to testify whose property is. So we weren't concerned about the houses. It's only a field that's maybe out of the city. People like sort of don't know who owns that and whatever. That would be the confusion. And then, yeah, but in the end, the Gemara says that it actually doesn't matter anyway. Even if it's a house, we still don't bring in an adult relative into the property of a child. He's Safta. There was an older woman, the Havali Tlaspansa, that had 3 daughters. She was taken captive together with one of her daughters. Idach Tarti Banse, Shchiva Chadaminayo. The other 2 daughters, one of them died. Beshavka Yanuka, and left a boy. And then there's one that's still around. Amar Abaya. Abaya says, Hey Chinavid, what would you like us to do with this property? You see, the mother and daughter are taken captive. There is a nephew plus 1 daughter here. What do you want us to do? Should we put the daughter, that would be the first choice, put the daughter that's still alive into the property? The problem is, maybe the grandmother died and the 3 daughters inherited. One of the daughters died. So her child is now a third partner in this, a third inherit. You're not allowed to bring a relative into the property of a child. Nukmino. Okay, so we'll put it in the hands of the child. So the problem is, but we can't do that either, because maybe the grandmother's still alive, and you're not allowed to bring up a child into the property of a captive, because it may not take care of it. Amar Abaya come up with a solution like this. We'll give half to the sister that's still alive. The other half, we'll put a apotropos for the child, and that will be, whatever the case is, that would be the correct solution.
Why don't you just give the whole thing to the
So, because the apotropos doesn't like to work for.
So we don't know how long it's going to be.
Right.
Until we wear them out.
Yeah, they only do things. That's the problem. They only do things for apotropos if they have a set. It's for an adult, unless it's for a child. Rava Amar Migu de Makmin Apotropos Lapalga Makmin Apotropos Lidach Palga. Rava has your solution. Why we'll do apotropos for the whole thing? Because there's a child there, and he feels like he's taking care of the child's property. Okay.
Meaning, when you have in Bezdin, you have a katan who inherits. He's there until he becomes older.
Right.
Why would he do the
A
same?
child inherits, but over here we can't bring him in because it's not really a child. Okay, so we put it up a apotropos in. But
there is a set time where it finishes. As soon as the katan doesn't out of the status of a katan.
Right. No, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, that's a good point. There is a set time. Okay, maybe the set, even that set time was only for one crop. You know what we said before, that we would do it for a small amount of time. That was 1 crop. This could be 13 years.
Well, what happens when a yasum is left at 5 years old inheriting?
Yeah, so you have 8 years left.
For
Right.
8 years.
Right. Yeah, but that's for the child.
One then already be appointed.
I'm sorry?
Aren't you already going to have one serving for minor?
Yeah, for a minor you have. Over here we're talking about where it's a minor and an adult. And for an adult, you would only do temporary. So
You're saying-
Ellie's asking, but
I'm saying
everything
for
is
the
always
minor
temporary.
Already, you're going to have.
Yeah.
Forget about the land. For a second. You're already going to have an administrator on the state until he gets older.
Right,
There's already somebody serving that position.
right, right. I would assume it's the same guy. Because he's going to be using the property to service the child. The Saif at the end, Shama the Shkiva Sapta. They heard that the grandmother, the old lady, had died. Okay, we don't know yet what's going on with that third daughter, right? That we don't know if could be she's alive. Amar Abaya. Abaya says, Tilsa Yavina Leila Achta. Give 1/3 to the sister that's alive. Tilsa Yavina Leila Yanuka. Give 1/3 to the child. V'idach Tilsa Yavina Danka La'achta. V'idach Danka Mekmin La'apatrapa. Now, there still is that one girl that's captive. What do you do with that one girl that's captive? So you divide that third in half, which means a sixth, and you give 1/6 to the sister, and the other 6, you give it to the apotropos of the child, because now the child has a third plus a sixth. What is that? No. Third plus a sixth.
Third is 2/6. Plus the 6 is 3/6.
But yeah,
3/6 is a
yeah, I guess you're right. Okay. Rava says.
It'll be a little less.
So that,
1/3 is 2/6. 2/6 plus 1/6 is 3/6. 3/6 is a half. What am I missing?
yeah, good. Sounds good.
Checks out.
Rav Amar Muki Migu de Muki Apotropos Ledanka Mukmina Le Apotropos Lidach Danka. Okay.
Missing the sprinkles.
Rava says exactly what he said before, that once we have a apotropos for the child, the apotropos will also take care of the other ones, which means that we can have this 2/6 will be taken care of, right? Which means the other third that we didn't know what to do, according to Rava, will go into the hands of an apotropos. Mari Barisik, Asaliyachim Bechuzai.
Wait, before you said the other 6. you said-
There's 2/6, which is the
and then you
third.
said another 6. Now you change it. Another third. That
No,
changes the whole math.
Okay,
Another thing.
there's 3/3. One of the thirds you divide in half. And you, right?
One of the thirds is the one that.
No, it's a 6. So now the Rava says that those 2 halves of that third, those 2/6, you put in apotropos to take care of that.
Okay.
Okay. Mari Barisik, he had a brother that came from Bechuzai. Amalei, he shows up, all right? So what happened was Mari Barisik, Isik is the father. He went to Bechuzai together with Mari. Then Mari returns. His father ends up marrying another woman and has a child. And this child shows up after Isaac passed away and tells to Mari, give me my inheritance, plaguely, give me my inheritance. Amalei, so Mari says, I don't know who you are. So Asal Kami de Rav Chisda, they come to Rav Chisda. Amalei, Chisda says, Shapri Kamalach. What he's telling you is good. What happened by Yosef? The brothers told him, Yosef recognized the brothers didn't recognize him. Why not? Because when he left 17, he didn't have a beard. Now he had a beard. Now he has a beard. So he doesn't know you, Amalei. So he tells to this brother that showed up, go bring witnesses that you're a brother and you'll get your inheritance. Amalei. So this brother says, Isli Sadi, I have witnesses, but they're afraid of Mari Barisik. We had Mari Barisik earlier in this Gemara in the Messias. Remember, they went to the property of Mari Barisik. Was that Mari Barisik? Yeah. When the Meimar Marzuch and Ravashi showed up over there, Mari Barisik. Anyway, with Rav Chisda, that's way the generations are way off. 200-year difference here. I don't know. Maybe there's 2 Mari Barisik. So yeah, I have witnesses, but they're afraid of him, the Gavra Alimo, because he's a strong person. No one wants to testify. No one wants to start up with him, like the head of some gang. That's what it sounds like. Amalei.
Go see Maury.
Amalei Ledidei Zil Ant. He says to him, is that how it goes? Amalei Ledidei. Amalei Ledidei. Zil Ant Aisisadi, the Lavachuchu. You should bring witnesses that you're not a brother. Amalei. So Mari says, yeah, that's very difficult. You bring witnesses that he's not a Dina Hachi. Is that what you really want to say? That the Dina Hachi is that he's the one that wants my inheritance. He's the one that should have to bring the proof. Amalei. So he says to him, that's the rule for you and for all your tough friends. Amalei. So he says, safe. What's going to happen over here? Even if I bring witnesses, everyone's only going to testify about me, only on my behalf. So if you think that everyone's going to testify, that they're afraid to testify, so my witnesses that I'm going to bring are going to testify falsely also. Amalei. So Rav Chizda says, Tarti layavni. They won't do two sin. You see, there's one thing not to testify, another thing to come and testify falsely. So he said like this. He said, this brother has witnesses that don't want to come because Mari's a tough guy. They don't want to start up. So Mari says, so if that's the case, why are you having me bring witnesses? If my witnesses, if you think I'm such a tough guy, I'll bring witnesses that are going to lie for me.
Oh, he said, have the system.
So yeah. So he tells him back. He says they're not going to do two crimes. There's one thing not to show up in court. There's another thing to show up and say and to lie. L'saif, at the end, also Sadi Dachvu. Witnesses came that said that he's a brother. Amalei. So the guy says, Lifligli nami mi pardisia bustane deshasal. I would also like from all the orchards and the gardens that that Mari Barisik worked on the field and he planted. I would like half of that income as well. Amalei Shaper Kamalach. He has a good point. That if the father passed away and he left older children and younger children, that what the work that they did gets divided equally. So this brother should also get. Rab also said that. Okay, Amalei Abaya. Abaya says to Rav Chizda, Midami, how can you compare? Over there, the adult children that were there knew that they're putting in the effort, and they know that the younger brothers are going to take part of it. So they were Michael, and they said we're doing it anyway, and okay, they'll get a little bit. They'll take. But Hacha miyada delechel. How did Mari know when he was doing that he was going to be doing it for this brother that wasn't even around? Somehow the story ended up in Eretz Yisrael by Rabami. Amalahu. Rabami says, we have an even a greater statement, Shamal and Karis, that Shamal and Karis Hashidei Layavinanai. What does that mean? When someone, when someone goes into the property of someone else, so he gets he gets paid like a sharecropper. Gets paid like a sharecropper, which means that the owner ends up taking the rest, and he does the work, but he doesn't take the whole thing. He only takes a third, and now you don't want to give this brother. So basically, Mari, which is in the property of this brother, should really only be getting like a third or a quarter or a half, but he shouldn't be taking everything. You don't want to give him what's really his. Adrua, if this comes back to Bavel, Adrua ha l'kameid Rav Chizda comes back to Rav Chizda. Amalahu, Rav Chizda says no, you can't compare. Midami, Hasam b'shus nachis over there when he went into the property, he went with permission. Achala b'shus nachis over here. Over here, when Mari went in, he didn't go with permission. Why does that make it worse? He never asked the Bezdin if he had to be dividing this. V'oid, and also katanu, vein marid and karav l'nechse katan.
Yeah, but the guy didn't come until after.
Yeah. We're not giving him at least the compensation of sharecropper for improvements to his brother's half. Oh no, so one second. Crush the day. I said it's wrong. We're asking that Murray should get extra because he should get like a sharecropper, at least compensation for the sharecropper. So it comes back to Rav Chisda. He says over there when he goes into the property with permission, so that's why he gets as a sharecropper. But over here, Murray went in without permission. Now 7 says, did not consult with Bezdin before taking possession of the property. The commentators question whether failed to consult Bezdin is a valid reason to withhold compensation, if the possession is otherwise legal. Rashba explains that Rav Chisda mentioned this point as a partial objection, but not as a compelling independent reason to deny Murray's compensation. Okay, there's a discussion there. Let me just see. And also, he's a cotton. He wasn't supposed to be in that property anyway. It came back to Rabami. Amalahu. Rabami says, oh, they didn't tell me that detail. Rabami says they didn't tell me that he was a child. If they would have said that he's a child, then I would have said that Murray doesn't get the extra compensation for going into the field.
His half brother was a cut.
The half brother was a cut. Yeah. Okay, Yeshikaya.
Thank you. So that